I know the truth. I didn't kill Lilly and Jack.
I'm still holding out hope. I don't know why they didn't find anything from Jack's pull-up to her.
3 days have been very stressful. I mean, ever since the Friday morning when we noticed that the children were gone.
Breaking news. The Globe and Mail has just dropped a shocking report on the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Inside it are details we've never heard before. A torn pink blanket tangled in the trees, a neighbor who swears they heard a car coming and going through the night, and a stepfather, Daniel Martell, whose story keeps changing. He even handed over his phone to police and boasts about passing a lie detector. But then, why did he deny the blanket was Lilly's, only to later claim it was planted from his garbage? Why did their mother tell relatives he hid a secret drug habit? Each piece of evidence raises more questions than answers. And if you stay with me until the end, you may find yourself arriving at the same chilling conclusion that many already suspect. These children didn't just vanish. Someone made them disappear. Part 1. The Stepdad in the Shadows. Who is Daniel Martell? In the middle of Nova Scotia's dense spruce forests, far from the quaint fishing towns on the coast, sits Lansdowne, a forgotten hamlet with fewer than 100 residents. It's a place where cell service disappears, where abandoned mine shafts dot the hillsides, and where poverty lingers like a heavy fog. It was here, in a rundown trailer off Highway 289, that 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan lived with their young mother, Malehya Brooks-Murray, their baby sister Meadow, and their stepfather, 34-year-old Daniel Martell. At first glance, Daniel seemed like a man simply trying to provide for his family. He worked shifts at the local hardwood mill, his pale eyes and ropey arms hardened by labor. But behind that rugged exterior was a man many describe as controlling, volatile, and hiding secrets. The trailer itself painted the picture of a chaotic life. Holes in the floorboards, tarps strung to keep out the weather, clutter filling the kitchen. The children's artwork was taped to the walls, next to a sliding patio door that opened to a small yard where chickens wandered freely. Their step-grandmother, who owned the home, had already retreated to a camper in the driveway, unable to handle the constant noise and chaos inside. Teachers at Salt Springs Elementary began to notice troubling signs. Jack and Lilly often arrived at school in dirty clothes, sometimes without proper winter gear. They were developmentally behind their classmates, and staff had to provide basic necessities. In December, just 5 months before their disappearance, Jack appeared on a school field trip photo with a green and purple bruise under his left eye. His stepfather defended it online, claiming Lilly had punched him. Other times, he insisted Lilly herself had a black eye from a toy accident. Yet in private messages, Daniel admitted that Jack had many black eyes. Concerns mounted. A child protection worker even visited the trailer after a report from the school. But the findings of that visit remained shielded by privacy laws. Daniel, when pressed, said it was simply about learning difficulties and possible autism. He insisted nothing was wrong. But those who knew Malehya say otherwise. She confided to relatives that Daniel controlled her every move, holding her down, taking her phone, making her fearful to leave. To her grandmother, she revealed an even darker truth. Daniel had hidden a drug addiction for nearly the first year of their relationship. Daniel, for his part, denied ever having a problem. Yet in interviews, he admitted to trying methamphetamines and pretty much everything. Recently, he told reporters he was attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings 3 times a week, while also taking online courses in anger management, depression, and substance abuse. Courses he said were recognized by child protection officials. "I have to clear my name for CPS," he insisted. So who is Daniel Martell? To the outside world, he tries to project the image of a hard-working stepfather unfairly accused, a man determined to prove his innocence. He tells reporters that he was the one keeping the children in line, the one feeding them, putting them to bed, calming them when they acted out. "I've been the only one there for them," he sobbed in one interview. But to others, Daniel is a man whose story doesn't add up. A man with a history of instability, financial troubles, substance use, and contradictions. His mother Janie insists he is misunderstood, a recluse who loves his stepchildren. Yet even she cannot explain the chaos swirling around him the morning Lilly and Jack disappeared. This is the shadow that looms over the case. A stepfather who insists he's innocent, but who carries with him a cloud of unanswered questions. And as we dig deeper, those questions only grow darker. Part 2, The Pink Blanket Mystery, Daniel's shifting story. The morning Lilly and Jack were reported missing, searchers fanned out across the woods of Lansdowne. Volunteers in orange vests tramped through swamps and tangled spruce. Helicopters thudded overhead, and police dogs sniffed through the cluttered yard of the trailer. Every corner of the property was examined, even the chicken coop and the camper where Daniel's mother Janie lived. By mid-afternoon, a call crackled over the emergency radio channel. Families had led responders to something caught in the branches of a spruce tree about a kilometer from the trailer. It was a child's blanket, pink, torn, and wrapped around the lower boughs like a flag in the wind. Malehya, the children's mother, immediately told searchers she believed it belonged to Lilly. For her, it was a devastating clue. But when police asked Daniel about the blanket, his reaction was startling. He denied it. He said it wasn't Lilly's. For investigators, this raised a red flag. If the blanket was hers, it could be one of the only physical clues tying the children to a potential abduction or escape route. If it wasn't, why would Malehya insist it was? And why would Daniel so quickly dismiss it? Days later, Daniel changed his story. Now he suggested the blanket might indeed be Lilly's. But if it was, someone had taken it from their trash and planted it in the woods to frame him. In one interview, he claimed it was pulled straight from a week-old garbage bag. He even hinted that other items of his had vanished mysteriously after the children went missing, including 2 sweaters. To the public, it sounded like a desperate attempt to explain away a damning clue. To investigators, it was a glaring inconsistency. Why would a stepfather deny a child's belonging only to later allege a bizarre conspiracy of planted evidence? And it wasn't the only suspicious element surrounding that discovery. The blanket was found on Lansdowne Road, not far from where Daniel's father and uncles lived. That road connects deep into the wilderness, to old dumps, remote lakes, and clear-cut logging roads. For many in the community, it seemed unthinkable that Lilly's blanket could have ended up there by accident. When reporters pressed Daniel, he doubled down. He said people looked at him like he was crazy when he raised the possibility of abduction early on. He insisted the blanket was part of a setup, and that he was the target. On social media, using accounts that the Globe has traced to him, Daniel even began posting riddles and cryptic comments, hinting that the children were being held by someone else. "As long as I remain the target," one message read, "the sick person or persons that have the kids may relax and make a mistake." But the contradictions kept piling up. In the days after the blanket was found, Malehya herself began suggesting the children had been abducted. She pleaded for an Amber Alert, writing online, "My children are not shy to strangers and will go with anyone. They don't understand stranger danger." Daniel echoed her words to the press, insisting they could have been lured away. Yet neither parent could explain why only a single child's boot print was found near the driveway that morning, or why both children's rubber boots and Lilly's strawberry backpack were gone. For Belinda, the children's grandmother, the discovery of the blanket only deepened her unease. It was located within walking distance of the trailer she had never been invited to see, despite years of begging for visits. To her, the pink cloth symbolized something sinister, a clue that had been hidden, then stumbled upon too late. In any missing child case, consistency is everything. Investigators look for patterns in testimony, details that line up, stories that remain steady under pressure. Daniel's account of the pink blanket did the opposite. It shifted, fractured, bent to fit a narrative in which he was always the victim of someone else's scheme. But to many Canadians following the case, it was precisely this inconsistency that rang alarm bells. A stepfather who claims innocence, yet can't explain a simple piece of fabric. A man who says he's been framed while living at the center of the mystery. The pink blanket was supposed to bring answers. Instead, it raised new questions that would haunt the investigation, the community, and the family of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Part 3. The Polygraph and the Phone. Innocent or illusion?
That unfolded in my favor. They obviously know I wasn't lying about anything.
In most missing child investigations, parents and step-parents quickly become the first focus of police scrutiny. Their movements, their statements, even the smallest contradictions are examined under a microscope, and Daniel Martell knew that from the very beginning. Unlike some suspects who resist cooperation, Daniel seemed almost eager to prove his innocence. Within days of Lilly and Jack's disappearance, he voluntarily handed over his phone to investigators, a move that, on the surface, projected transparency. He wanted the police to see his messages, his calls, his digital footprint. To the public, this looked like the act of a man with nothing to hide. For Daniel, it was a chance to flip the narrative. "I have been the only one there for them," he told reporters. "I fed them, I calmed them down, I put them to bed. I need people to know I loved them." Then came the polygraph. Daniel boasted that he had taken a lie detector test and passed. He repeated it in interviews, highlighting it as a badge of honor, as if the machine had certified his innocence once and for all. For many watching the case, this sounded convincing. After all, who would dare submit to such a test if they had something to hide? But behind the scenes, investigators and experts know the truth. Polygraphs are not foolproof. They are not admissible in Canadian courts. At best, they measure stress and physiological responses, not guilt or innocence. A confident liar can sometimes beat the test, just as a nervous but innocent person can fail it. So why was Daniel so quick to promote his polygraph success? For supporters, it was proof he was telling the truth. For skeptics, it felt like misdirection, a way to drown out the more troubling inconsistencies in his story. Those inconsistencies loomed large. The pink blanket found in the woods, which he first denied and then claimed was planted. The neighbor who reported hearing a car coming and going from the trailer 6 times on the night before the children vanished. The bruises that appeared on Jack's face at school, injuries Daniel struggled to explain. And while Daniel pointed to his phone and his polygraph as shields, others saw only more shadows. The phone, after all, could not reveal what was said in hushed conversations behind closed doors. And the lie detector, however much Daniel insisted otherwise, could not erase the doubts born from months of contradictory behavior. To complicate matters further, Daniel often presented himself online in strange ways. Under accounts traced back to him, he engaged in social media chats about the case, dropping cryptic hints, suggesting the children were being held by someone else. "As long as I remain the target," one message read, "the sick person, or persons that have the kids, may relax and make a mistake." For investigators, these online ramblings only deepened the mystery. Was this the voice of a desperate man searching for his stepchildren, or the calculated misdirection of someone trying to manipulate the narrative? Even within his own family, trust fractured. Malehya confided to relatives that Daniel controlled her, that he had hidden a drug addiction during the early part of their relationship. She described feeling trapped, unable to leave, unable to speak. Her departure from the search site on May 2nd, blocking Daniel from contacting her, changing her status to single, added another layer of tension. Through it all, Daniel insisted he was being unfairly targeted. He spoke of stigma, of being stared at in public, of strangers calling him a child killer on Facebook. He broke down in interviews, claiming that only he could manage the children, that Malehya relied on him for everything. And yet, the more he spoke, the more contradictions seemed to surface. The image Daniel tried to build, the cooperative stepfather, the man who passed the polygraph, the one with nothing to hide, was powerful. It suggested strength, honesty, even martyrdom. But to many, it felt like an illusion, a facade that crumbled every time new evidence or testimony came to light. Because in the end, a phone can be surrendered and a polygraph can be passed. But neither can answer the most haunting question of all. Where are Lilly and Jack Sullivan? Part 4. Substances, Control, and the Cracks in the Mask. When children vanish, the search for answers doesn't stop at the woods, the rivers, or even the old mine shafts. It often leads straight into the home and into the relationships that shape it. In the case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, that trail led once again to Daniel Martell. From the beginning, Daniel insisted he was a rock for the family. He claimed he was the one who put the children to bed, who calmed them when they fought, who kept the household running when Malehya struggled. "I've been the only one there for them," he repeated in interviews. But behind closed doors, a different story was being whispered. Malehya confided in her grandmother that Daniel was controlling, that he would hold her down, take her phone, make her fearful of leaving. To her relatives, she admitted she had never wanted to stay in that trailer. In one message to the children's grandmother, Belinda, she wrote simply, "I never wanted to stay there." Then came the most explosive revelation. Daniel had hidden a serious substance problem for nearly the first year of their relationship. Malehya said she only discovered it later, that he had been concealing a dangerous secret all along. Daniel denied this. In interviews, he painted himself as a man misunderstood, not dependent on substances, but a victim of rumors. Yet in other moments, he admitted he had tried methamphetamines, and, in his own words, pretty much everything. He claimed he had turned a corner, that he was now attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings 3 times a week, and completing online courses in parenting, anger management, and substance abuse. "I have to clear my name for CPS," he told reporters. For investigators and the public alike, this was another fracture in the image Daniel tried to maintain. Could a man grappling with addiction, control, and financial stress really be the stable stepfather he claimed to be? The cracks widened in the days following the children's disappearance. On May 2nd, the very day searchers scoured the woods, tensions erupted outside the trailer. Accusations flew about substance use in the home. One of Malehya's family members hurled the charge that Daniel must have been involved in the children's disappearance. Shouts escalated until Daniel's mother, Janie, forced them off the property. By that evening, the family unit collapsed entirely. At the search headquarters, Malehya suddenly said she wasn't feeling well. With her mother's help, she left with baby Meadow, and she never returned to Daniel. She blocked his calls, changed her Facebook status to single, and cut ties. For Belinda, the children's grandmother, that moment was telling. If she could leave, Belinda said later, her voice breaking, then it meant she knew her kids weren't coming back. Meanwhile, Daniel grew increasingly defensive. He lamented how strangers stared at him in public, how car dealers snatched keys from his hand when they realized who he was. On Facebook, his inbox filled with messages calling him a child killer, demanding to know where are the bodies. He broke down in interviews, insisting he was unfairly judged. Yet even as he protested his innocence, his behavior online fueled further suspicion. Using profiles that the Globe traced to him, Daniel inserted himself into chat groups about the case, leaving cryptic comments hinting at conspiracies. To some, it looked like a desperate man searching for answers. To others, it felt like manipulation, a man trying to muddy the waters, to control the narrative just as he allegedly controlled those inside his home. For Malehya, there was no going back. She described to relatives a relationship marked by fear and secrecy. To her paternal grandmother, she confided that Daniel had her scared, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. To outsiders, it sounded like the testimony of someone trapped. In the weeks that followed, the community of Lansdowne, and indeed the entire country, turned its gaze on Daniel Martell. The polygraph, the phone, the blanket, the whispers of substance use. Each piece was debated, dissected, doubted, and through it all, 2 children remained missing. For Belinda, the children's paternal grandmother, the conclusion seemed inevitable. Looking at photos of Lilly and Jack from the past year, she noticed how thin they looked, how their lips were cracked, how they seemed weary beyond their years. She regretted not pushing harder to see them, not intervening sooner. "I hate to say it," she admitted, "but every one of us failed them. We all failed these kids." As the search for answers continues, one truth becomes harder to ignore. The mask Daniel tried to wear, the hardworking stepfather, the innocent man under siege, is riddled with cracks. Behind it, investigators, family members, and an entire nation are left to wonder whether those cracks hide something far darker. Because 2 children don't just disappear on a May morning. And if the answers aren't outside that trailer, then maybe, just maybe, they've been inside it all along. And so, we arrive at the end of this deep dive into the role of Daniel Martell, the stepfather at the center of the storm. Over 4 chapters, we've traced his shadow. From the chaotic life inside that Lansdowne trailer, to the discovery of Lily's torn pink blanket, to his boast of passing a lie detector test, and finally, to the revelations of control, addiction, and fractured trust. What emerges is not a simple portrait, but a web of contradictions. A man who handed over his phone and demanded to be seen as transparent, yet shifted his story when it mattered most. A man who claimed to be the children's protector, yet whose partner confided that she was afraid, trapped, unable to breathe. We've heard him cry on camera. We've read his cryptic posts online. We've seen him defend himself with the polygraph, and we've seen him accused of hiding a drug habit. But through it all, one fact remains painfully constant. Lilly and Jack Sullivan are still missing. 2 children who should have been laughing in their schoolyard, playing in their fort under the spruce trees, running through the yard in their little rubber boots, instead vanished without a trace. And here is the question that lingers. If every road in Lansdowne leads back to that trailer, then how long can we ignore the cracks in the story? How long before the truth can no longer be hidden? At True Child Cases, we refuse to let these questions fade into silence. Our mission is to keep the spotlight on missing children, to push past the official statements, and to expose the stories that too often go unheard. Because every child matters, and every answer matters. If you've watched this far, we know you care about finding the truth. Please subscribe, share this video, and join us as we continue to follow every lead, examine every inconsistency, and bring these stories into the light. Lilly and Jack deserve to be found. Their families deserve answers. And together, we will keep asking the hard questions until the silence finally breaks.